Alright, sorry for the second video. I promise we'll be done soon. We just have a couple more slides to talk about. So we were at Petites. The difference between Petites and Junior is Petites is clothing manufactured for women who are shorter, generally 5'5" and under, whereas Juniors are for women who are slender and potentially short. But Petites is for specifically shorter women. And this means that the skirts and the pants will be shorter, and so hopefully people won't need to alter them, pay money to alter them, and also sleeve lengths are shorter. So these size ranges from 0 to 16, but most manufacturers go from 4 to 14. Some manufacturers also have just shorter versions of their misses sizes. So there might be like a pair of jeans that's a size 8, and then there might be an 8S, which would just be a misses short, or an 8P, which is a misses petite. So depending on the manufacturer, they might do a separate petites category or just kind of lump it in with their misses category. The other categories that I wanted to talk to you is the women's category. So there's a difference between misses and women's. Women's is for women who are average height but fuller figured. Generally, the word on the street for this is plus size. It's where the clothing will be between size 14 to 24. And this has been a burgeoning industry because most women in Canada and America who are in adulthood are in these sizes, and so there's been more of a demand for fashionable silhouettes and not clothing that looks like a tarp. Some designers that are famous, such as Liz Claiborne, design a specific line for this size category, and other women don't, or other designers don't. Melissa McCarthy famously had a lot of trouble finding a designer for her red carpet Oscar dress because they wouldn't make a dress for a plus size girl. So sometimes we'll also see half sizes, like 12.5 or 26.5, to accommodate for fuller short-waisted women. So the last two that I want to talk about in here are tall sizes. This is like the opposite of the petites category. So it's for women who are usually like 5'9" or 5'10" or taller. And they're generally built in sizes from 8 to 20. And this means opposite of petites, that the pants, the skirts are longer, and the jacket and sleeve lengths are longer as well. The last category that I wanted to talk about in women's wear is the maternity category. This is a size range that allows for expansion, so it looks good when you are just postpartum or in early phases of pregnancy, and it also looks good when you are in full bloom at 9 months pregnant. Generally, these sizes are size 4 or 6 to a size 16. Some stores like Old Navy and Walmart have maternity categories within their misses category as well. So it'll be like a rack in the section. So one thing that's really important to know about this is that fashionable clothing for either larger size women or smaller size women weren't really available until the 80s. So women who were taller or shorter or plus size or really thin had to make their own clothing or buy clothing and get it altered tremendously. So more and more designers like Givenchy, Anne Klein, and Ellen Tracy are designing for specialized sizes. So the last thing that I want to talk about is styling and price categories. So we've talked about how there's designer level and there's mass market level. So I want to actually start putting a name on some of these things. Traditionally, manufacturers and designers concentrate on one price point. So either just couture or maybe two, like couture and ready-to-wear or ready-to-wear and mass market. So designers have to decide what kind of price point they are going to deal with. So let's put some names on these because we're going to be using them quite a bit. So couture is let's say the highest level. This clothing is made to order. It's one of a kind. It's built from the finest of things, and it is very, very expensive. It's reserved for a very small clientele that can afford these garments. Low-range couture outfits are about $5,000, and they can go upwards to $50,000 or more for a single garment. So couture is very, very special. Designer stylings is generally designers who produce couture and ready-to-wear. So typically these designers own their own businesses or have their own signature collection. The average price point of these garments is still pricey. It's probably about $1,000 to $5,000 per garment. And the fabrication and production methods are also excellent. So these are the types of designers you would think of when you are thinking of a runway show, like Armani, Donna Karan, Michael Kors, Hervé Leger, or Ralph Lauren. There's also several subcategories that I'm going to talk about in the next slide, and then we will be finished. So young designer is a designer that appeals to urban, young, trendy customers, and they're generally a little tiny bit cheaper than designer clothes, and they're found in department stores or small specialty stores. So their price point's lower because they assume that younger people have less disposable income because they're younger. There is also bridge, which is basically a step down from designer. And the way that it becomes a step down is the fabrications and production methods are less expensive. So sometimes famous designers have secondary lines, like Donna Karan's secondary line is DKNY, Calvin Klein's secondary line is CK, Versace's secondary line is Versus, and Armani's secondary line is Emporio. So these designers kind of bridge the gap between people who want designer-like styles but can't afford designer. Contemporary is next. So contemporary is similar to bridge, but it's even cheaper. So these garments are about $200 or $300. They're sold in department stores, or maybe the designer has a standalone store. So this is like BCBG, Laundry, Max Studio, Parallel, Liz Claiborne, places like that. Upper moderate to lower bridge, you can see it's getting lower and lower toward more budget conscious people. Price ranges of these garments are $150 to $250, and again it's becoming cheaper because the fabrications are less expensive and the silhouettes are less extreme. These are typically sold in department stores. Moving on to moderate, this has a huge market share because most people can afford these price points, and so this really appeals to the middle class. So examples of this include Guess. Junior is styling heavily developed for teenagers. Don't get this confused with the Junior in sizing, but this style is heavily influenced on the music scene, television, and street fashion. So this might be like similar to Forever 21 or H&M. And then there's budget. So budget is the lowest quality and the lowest production method. This means that the garments aren't typically well constructed, so the garment won't withstand excessive wear. It's not built to last, and anyone who's bought something from H&M or Forever 21 or Walmart can see that the wear on the clothes is generally more visible. Department stores typically remove this and then sell it to like Walmart or Kmart or Target. So that is that. So while reading through these styling and price categories, it's important that as designers become more popular, they add lines in other categories as to expand their business. So Donna Karan started with ready-to-wear and then started moving into these other areas. Ralph Lauren started with menswear and then started adding women's apparel to his repertoire. So it's not important that you can rattle out all of these, but it's important for you to understand that the business of fashion is complex, and that for designers, it's all about who their customer is, and who their target audience is. So if you're thinking women is really broad. So what size of women, what price point of women, and then designers go from there. So the business of fashion, hopefully you can chew on that, but don't worry if you don't get it yet. We're going to be mulling over these concepts through Unit 1 and Unit 2. So I'll see you later.